Major. I'm just going to go over the Xactimate workbook I'm sending you for our appraisal. As I sent to you in the emails, I broke up your scope in 8 and 8 formatting. So there's remediation, flooring, walls, ceiling, doors and windows, mechanical MEPs, etc. And then I have, for example, in walls and ceiling, I have your scope, which is noted in the coverages, and then I have difference in scope or contractor's additional scope, which are listed in coverages for differences. The only thing you need to do is you could either drag the line item up if you agree to it, or you could, then it'll be above the line item and no difference in scope, or you could just go to the line item in the differences and make it Narduli scope, which would put it up in the category when we filter. So one of those two ways. If there's something that you disagree with, you can leave it in the differences, and then what I'll do is, if you say when we meet on the 24th, if you say I disagree with the 5/8 drywall, I'll put that into the scope for the umpire. That'll change, and then we'll be able to filter the scope for the umpire, and that's basically it. So if you want to do a quick pass through and have your stuff that you already agree on, or we can go through it when we go to the loss. I will have a guy with me with Xactimate open while we're walking through. So if we're walking through, I know we took pictures of the stamps for the 5/8 drywall. But if we're walking through and you agree to the 5/8, he can either change your drywall number globally, all 1/2 inch to 5/8, and then whatever number you want here, and then we'll address unit prices differently, and we'll go from there. One other thing I want you to note, for example, this is not your scope with additions at your rates. This is the scope with additional scope, the same scope. For example, you've got your hanging cabinets, base cabinets, so you've got all your cabinets which add up to a number, and then down here there's actually a bid from the cabinet maker who made the original cabinets to replace it, so that line item's here. So if you look at the global number of whatever this estimate or workbook totals, it includes double the kitchens. We just have a quote, and then you can do one of two things. You can go in and modify, if you change your cabinet prices and it adds up to this, or we can both agree that there's a quote. We can use it, delete these items, move this item above the line so there's no differences, and then we go from there. So that's pretty much it. It's a simple, you can move the items above the line and we'll change the difference to Narduli scope. Or if you are, when we meet, or you say I'm absolutely not agreeing on this item, then what we'll do is we'll just change the item in the coverage for scope for the umpire, and then when we're ready, we'll actually filter the report. If we don't agree and we have to go to the umpire, we'll filter the report to say on coverages we'll just print out differences, scope for umpire, and then what it'll do is it'll print us a scope for the umpire. Then with regard to unit costs, I have an Excel spreadsheet. When we make these agreements or disagreements, you may just want to change the cost for drywall to 5/8. We may have a difference in price. We'll just address that on an Excel spreadsheet. So what'll happen is if we have to go to the umpire for anything, we'll have this scope only for the umpire in the rooms following our estimate, and then we'll have unit costs. So the umpire can give us his unit costs. We can change them in the estimate globally, and then what we can do is then have a final modified. When the umpire, let's say the umpire says he agrees with this, we'll drag it up into scope or the agreed scope, and then we'll be able to give a final estimate to the insurance carrier to make payment on, and for the insured to follow, and for the insured while they're rebuilding to address law and ordinance issues or any other issues they have, or if we leave an open item, they'll be able to address it with the carrier without further intervention. So that's pretty much it. I'll shoot this video to you in a link, and the ESX, which has everything broken out in 8 and 8 formatting, missing scope listed in that category, and then you can move some stuff around. If you want to look at your photos, you'll see about the, for example, the if you agree to clean the floor or joist system, clean the stud walls, you can just change them to Nardoli scope now, and it'll cut down on things we have to discuss then. And then just shoot me before we meet your updated ESX, and we'll have it on the computer so we can just make changes in real time. I'll shoot this out to you shortly. Thanks, and I'll see you on Tuesday.